Give me your damn card, or you're dead to me." My daughter's scream ripped through the kitchen like a mortar blast, her eyes burning with a hatred I'd never seen. Then the mug full scalding coffee detonated across my chest, clawing through my skin like napalm, each drop of betrayal sharper than any blade I faced in Iraq. The cup shattered, shards slicing the air like shrapnel, mirroring the wreckage of my heart. She stood there, sneering, as if I, her father, was nothing but a washed-up vet bleeding her dry. All for her leech of a boyfriend, demanding my VA pension for his pathetic toys. The pain wasn't just the burn, it was her contempt, shredding every sacrifice I'd made. Every night I held her through her tears. I was erased, broken, yet unbowed. And I will not be destroyed. The pain in my chest wasn't just from the coffee's burn, it was the sting of betrayal from the daughter I'd raised to salute the flag, not spit on it. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet who survived 2 tours in Iraq, only to be ambushed in my own kitchen in Colorado Springs. This house, a modest one, 200-square-foot rancher 3 miles from Fort Carson, holds my life's battles. A folded American flag on the mantel, Virginia letters stacked on the counter, my old service medals tucked in a drawer. I bought this place with my late wife, Ellen, dreaming it'd be a home for our daughter, Sarah Miller, to grow strong. Back then, Sarah was my pride. She'd run across the lawn at Fort Carson's 4th of July parades, her pigtails bouncing, waving a tiny stars and stripes, shouting, "That's my dad." I'd beam, my Marine heart swelling, thinking I'd done right by her. Now, at 35, Sarah's changed. Her eyes, once bright with dreams, are cold, hardened by Ryan Walker, her deadbeat boyfriend who's never held a job longer than a month. He's got her convinced my VA pension, $2,800 a month, earned through sweat and scars, is their ticket to a flashy life. "Dad, it's just a loan," Sarah snapped that morning, her voice sharp as a K.A. bar knife. "Ryan needs a $5,000 gaming setup to start streaming. It's an investment." I stared at her, my calloused hands gripping the table. "An investment?" I growled. "I sold my Harley to pay your college tuition. That was my investment in you." Her smirk twisted, like she was mocking the sacrifices I'd carried for decades. Ryan lounged on the couch, scrolling his phone, not even looking up. My grandson, Michael, 14, watched from the doorway, his face torn, caught between his mom's greed and the grandpa he once idolized. The air in that kitchen felt heavier than a desert sandstorm, and I knew this wasn't just about money. It was about loyalty, and Sarah had chosen her side. The coffee stain on my shirt had dried, but the wound in my chest festered, raw and unyielding, like a shrapnel scar that never heals. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Sarah once colored stars on construction paper, now a battlefield littered with VA letters and unpaid bills. I'm William Bill Carter, a Marine Corps vet who thought he'd seen every kind of betrayal in Iraq, but nothing prepared me for this war at home. Sarah Miller, my daughter, had crossed a line no Marine could forgive. She wasn't just after my money. She was dismantling my life, piece by piece, to prop up Ryan Walker's lazy dreams. That $5,000 gaming rig wasn't a one-off. It was the tip of a spear, and I was about to uncover how deep it had pierced. I started noticing the cracks weeks before the coffee hit my chest. My mailbox, once stuffed with VA checks and car shop invoices, sat empty. "Mailman must have mixed it up," Sarah said, shrugging, her eyes dodging mine like a rookie avoiding a drill sergeant. I believed her at first foolishly, like a grunt trusting a ceasefire. Then came the bank alerts on my old laptop, buried under dust in the garage. I hadn't touched that thing since Ellen died, but something told me to fire it up. The screen flickered to life, and there it was, my VA pension account, bleeding. Charges I didn't make $200 at an electronics store, $150 for streaming subscriptions, $600 for a drone Ryan bragged about on social media. Each transaction was a gut punch, a theft not just of money but of trust. I scrolled through months of statements, my hands shaking, not from age but from rage. Sarah had set my account to paperless, saying it was easier. Easier for who? Not me. I confronted her that evening, the Colorado Springs sunset casting long shadows through the kitchen window. "Sarah, what's this?" I held up a printed statement, circling a $1,200 charge for a hotel I'd never seen. Her face didn't flinch. "You're confused, Dad," she said, her voice flat as a spent cartridge. "I'm handling things. You don't need to worry." Handling things? I'd handled firefights in Fallujah, carried wounded brothers through sandstorms, and now my own daughter thought I couldn't handle my own money? "This is my pension," I said, my voice low but steady, like a rifle's aim, "earned with my blood. You don't get to handle it." Ryan, slouched in the living room, snorted without looking up from his phone. "Chill, old man. It's family money." Family money? The words burned hotter than the coffee. My pension wasn't a piggy bank for his toys, it was my lifeline, earned through 20 years of service. Then I found the real knife in my back. In a locked drawer in Sarah's room, her old bedroom, where she used to hang Marine Corps posters, I found a folder. Inside were documents, a title transfer application for our house, my signature forged in her sharp, looping scrawl. She tried to sell the rancher, the one Ellen and I bought with our savings, the one where Michael learned to ride a bike in the driveway. The application was dated a month ago, filed with the El Paso County Recorder. My name, my home, my legacy, erased with a pen. I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, the air in the room heavy as a bunker before a blast. "Sarah," I whispered to no one. "How could you?" I'd given her everything, college tuition, a roof, my trust, and she'd traded it for Ryan's promises of a big score. I called her out the next morning. "You forged my name," I said, slamming the document on the table. Michael, eating cereal in the corner, froze, his spoon halfway to his mouth. Sarah's eyes narrowed, but her voice stayed cold. "You're being dramatic, Dad. I was protecting our future. You can't even mow the lawn anymore." "Protecting?" She was looting my life like a scavenger on a battlefield. Ryan chimed in, smirking. "Let it go, Bill. You're too old to fight this." Too old? I'd carried 80-pound packs through deserts at 40. I wasn't too old to fight for what was mine. Michael's eyes darted between us, wide and scared, like he was watching his world crack. I wanted to tell him it'd be okay, but the truth was, I didn't know. Sarah had taken more than money. She'd taken my place in this family, and every step she took pushed me closer to oblivion. That night, alone in my room, I stared at the folded flag on my dresser, the one presented at Ellen's funeral. It was all I had left of the life we'd built, the life I thought Sarah would carry forward. Instead, she'd turned it into a lie, a scheme to bankroll Ryan's ego. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a violation of the code I'd lived by: loyalty, honor, duty. I'd faced enemies in war, but this enemy wore my daughter's face, and that cut deeper than any bullet. I wasn't just fighting for my pension or my house. I was fighting for my name, for the man I'd sworn to be. And I'd be damned if I let her erase that. The forged signature on that title transfer burned in my mind like a tracer round cutting through the night, but nothing could prepare me for the wound that came next. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet who thought he'd faced every kind of pain in Iraq: bullets, heat, loss. But standing in the Veterans of Foreign Wars Hall in Colorado Springs, 3 miles from Fort Carson, I learned there's a deeper kind of agony, one that doesn't just scar the body but obliterates the soul. It was a Saturday night, the VFW's monthly potluck, where old Marines like me swapped stories over cheap coffee and casseroles. The room smelled of burnt grounds and camaraderie, the walls lined with photos of brothers who never made it home. I'd always felt whole here, among men who knew the weight of an oath. But that night, Sarah Miller, my own daughter, turned that sanctuary into a battlefield. She stormed in late, Ryan Walker trailing behind her like a stray dog sniffing for scraps. Heads turned my squad, men who'd carried me through sand and fire, watched as Sarah marched to my table. "You're embarrassing us, Dad," she shouted, her voice echoing off the concrete walls like a grenade's blast. "You're a burden, clinging to your medals and your measly pension, dragging us down." The room froze. My friend Pete, who lost a leg in Fallujah, dropped his fork. Another vet, Charlie, stared at his plate, his knuckles white. Sarah didn't stop. "You think you're some hero. You're just a broke vet, hoarding money we need to survive." Each word was a bayonet, twisting deeper, carving out the pride I'd carried for decades. Ryan smirked, leaning against the wall, his phone glowing in his hand like a trophy of her betrayal. I stood there, my coffee cup trembling in my grip, the burn from her scalding mug 2 weeks ago still raw under my shirt. "Sarah," I said, my voice low, steady, like I was calling in coordinates under fire. "This is my home. These are my brothers. You don't get to rewrite who I am." She laughed, a cold, sharp sound that cut through the chatter. "Your home? You're lucky I let you stay in it. You can't even fix the gutters, let alone pay for Michael's future." Michael, my grandson, wasn't there, thank God, but the mention of his name in her venomous tirade felt like a violation of something sacred. The VFW flag hung behind her, its stars mocking the loyalty she'd abandoned. Pete reached for my arm, whispering, "Bill, don't let her do this." But it was too late. The room's eyes were on me, not with pity, but with the quiet shame of witnessing a man stripped bare. I walked out, my boots heavy on the hardwood floor, each step echoing like a drumbeat in a funeral march. Outside, the Colorado night was crisp, the air biting at my face, but it couldn't match the cold in my chest. I leaned against my old pickup truck, the one I'd driven to every VA appointment, its paint chipped like my faith in family. Sarah's words weren't just an attack, they were an execution. She'd erased me, not just from her life, but from the respect of men who'd once called me brother. I'd faced death in war, watched friends fall, buried my wife Ellen under a Fort Carson sky, but this was annihilation. My daughter had taken the one thing I had left, my name, my honor, the man I'd fought to be. I closed my eyes, the VFW's neon sign buzzing faintly across the lot, and felt the weight of every sacrifice I'd made for her. $30,000 for her college, years of double shifts at the garage, nights spent teaching her to drive in this very truck. I could still see her at 10, saluting me at a Memorial Day parade, her smile brighter than the brass on my uniform. Now, that girl was gone, replaced by a stranger who'd rather burn me than honor me. Ryan's shadow loomed in my mind, his smirk a signal flare for the chaos he'd sown. But Michael, my grandson, was still out there, caught in their crossfire. I thought of his face that morning, watching his mother's rage, his eyes pleading for something to hold on to. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for him, for the truth he deserved to know. The pain in that VFW hall wasn't the end, it was the spark. I straightened, my hand gripping the truck's door handle like a rifle stock. Sarah thought she'd broken me. She thought her words could bury a Marine. She was wrong. I'd survived worse than her contempt, and I'd fight to reclaim what was mine, not just my house, but my legacy. The sting of Sarah's words at the VFW hall lingered like smoke after a fire, but I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet, and Marines don't fold under fire, they regroup. That night, under the dim glow of my kitchen lamp in our Colorado Springs rancher, I swore an oath to myself, not with words but with the steel in my spine. I'd take back what was mine, not just my pension, not just my house, but my name, my honor, the things Sarah Miller and her leech of a boyfriend, Ryan Walker, thought they could erase with a smirk and a forged signature. I wasn't the broken vet they mocked. I was a man who'd navigated minefields in Iraq, and this was just another battlefield. My mission was clear: gather intel, build a plan, and strike back. I started in the garage, where my old footlocker sat, battered from years of moves, its hinges creaking like the joints in my knees. Inside, buried under faded photos and Ellen's letters, was my father's will, a yellowed page listing me and Sarah as co-owners of this 1,200 square foot house. My signature was there, real, not the looping lie Sarah had scrawled on that title transfer she tried to file with El Paso County. That document was my first piece of ammo, proof she couldn't bury. I pulled out my laptop, the one Sarah said was too complicated for me, and logged into my VA account. It took 3 tries. My passwords were old, like me, but the screen lit up with more evidence. $3,500 in unauthorized withdrawals over 6 months, from gas stations to gaming stores, all tied to Ryan's name on delivery receipts. Each click felt like loading a magazine, steady and deliberate. I needed backup. So I called Tom Bennett, a Marine I'd served with in Fallujah, now a lawyer in town who traded his rifle for a briefcase but never lost his edge. We met at Rosie's Diner, a greasy spoon off Highway 24, where the coffee was bad but the booths were private. "Bill," Tom said, his voice low like we were planning a raid. "This isn't just theft, it's fraud. We can bury them." I slid the will and bank statements across the table, my hand steady despite the fire in my chest. He scanned the pages, his eyes narrowing like he was sighting a target. "Forged title transfer, unauthorized charges, this is a paper trail a blind man could follow," he said. "We start with the bank, freeze the account, then hit the county recorder. You're still sole owner. She's got nothing." We spent nights at that diner, mapping out every move like a battle plan. Tom pulled records from the VA, confirming my pension was mine alone, not Sarah's piggy bank. He found an email trail where she'd set up a forwarding rule, redirecting my bank alerts to her account, thinking I'd never notice. "She's cocky," Tom said, scribbling notes on a legal pad. "Cocky gets sloppy." I nodded, my jaw tight. "She thinks I'm done, Tom, like I'm some old grunt who can't fight back." He looked up, his eyes sharp. "Then let's show her what a Marine can do." I went home and checked my mailbox, still empty, just as Sarah had planned. But I wasn't empty-handed. I drove 3 miles to the post office on Nevada Avenue, where a clerk with glasses thicker than my patience confirmed Sarah had rerouted my mail to a P.O. box I'd never seen. "Initiated online, sir," she said, printing a form. "Not by you?" I shook my head, signing the reversal with a hand that didn't shake. That form was another bullet in my clip. Back at the house, I found Michael, my 4-year-old grandson, sitting on the porch, his skateboard idle. "Grandpa," he said, his voice small, "why's Mom so mad all the time?" I knelt, ignoring the ache in my knees. "She's lost her way, kid," I said, "but I'm gonna find mine, and I'll make sure you're okay." His eyes, so much like Ellen's, held mine, and I saw trust there, fragile but real. Every step I took, every document, every call felt like reclaiming ground. Sarah and Ryan thought they'd ambushed me, but they forgot who I was. I'd survived ambushes before, outsmarted enemies in the dark. This was no different. I wasn't just fighting for my $2,800 a month pension or the house Ellen and I built. I was fighting for Michael, for the truth he'd carry forward. I looked at the folded flag on my dresser, its stars gleaming under the lamplight. Semper Fi, I whispered, not to the flag but to myself. Loyalty wasn't just a word, it was my weapon, and I was locked and loaded. The evidence I'd gathered with Tom Bennett bank statements, forged title transfers, rerouted mail was my ammunition, and now, in the El Paso County Courthouse, I was ready to fire. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet, and no one, not even my daughter Sarah Miller, could erase me without a fight. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale air, its high ceilings looming like the bunkers I'd navigated in Iraq. I sat beside Tom, my old squad mate turned lawyer, his tie as sharp as his focus. Across the aisle, Sarah and Ryan Walker sat stiffly, her eyes darting to the floor, his jaw clenched like he could bully the truth into submission. My grandson Michael wasn't there. I'd insisted he stay home, shielded from this war, but his future, and mine, hung on every word spoken in this room. The judge, a woman with gray hair pulled tight and glasses perched low, called the case. Tom stood, his voice steady as a sniper's aim. Your Honor, William Carter, a retired Marine, has been defrauded by his daughter, Sarah Miller, and her partner, Ryan Walker. They forged his signature to transfer title of his 1,200 square foot home, siphoned $3,500 from his VA pension, and rerouted his mail to conceal their theft. He laid out the evidence like a general presenting a battle plan. Bank statements showing charges for Ryan's drones and gaming gear, the will proving my co-ownership, email forwarding rules Sarah set to hide alerts, and the post office form confirming her mail theft. Each document landed like a shell, precise and devastating. Sarah's lawyer, a young guy in a cheap suit, tried to counter. Mr. Carter is confused, Your Honor, he stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. He authorized these transactions to support his family. He's elderly, recovering from knee surgery, and reliant on Miss Miller's care. The lie hit me like a sucker punch. Reliant? I'd carried 80-pound packs through deserts, rebuilt engines at my garage, and raised Sarah alone after Ellen's death. I leaned forward, my voice cutting through the room. I'm not confused, I said, each word a bullet. I'm a Marine. I earned that pension with 20 years of service. They stole it to fund a lifestyle I never approved. The judge's eyes flicked to me, sharp, assessing, like she was weighing my scars against their story. Tom pressed forward, holding up the forged title transfer. This signature isn't Mr. Carter's, he said. We have handwriting analysis and the original will, naming him co-owner of the property at 1420 Aspen Drive. Miss Miller filed this fraudulently with El Paso County, attempting to sell a $300,000 home without his consent. Sarah's face crumpled, her hands twisting in her lap. Ryan shifted, his smirk gone, replaced by a nervous twitch. The judge leaned forward, her pen tapping the bench. Miss Miller, she said, her voice cold as a Colorado winter, did you believe you had legal authority to act on your father's behalf? Sarah mumbled, I was helping our family, Your Honor. Helping? The word was a mockery, as hollow as the promises she'd broken. The courtroom grew heavy, the silence thick as smoke before an explosion. I thought of the VFW hall, Sarah's venomous words, broke vet, hoarding money, ringing in my ears. I thought of Michael, his trust caught in her crossfire. This wasn't just about money or a house. It was about honor, the code I'd lived by, the oath I'd sworn to protect what was mine. The judge's gavel struck, a sound like artillery fire. "This court finds clear evidence of fraud and financial exploitation," she declared. "Sarah Miller and Ryan Walker are liable for $3,500 in damages, plus legal costs. The title transfer is voided. The property remains in William Carter's name." Sarah gasped, her hand covering her mouth, tears spilling. Ryan bolted from his seat, shoving past the bailiff, his face red with rage. "This isn't over, old man," he shouted, storming out. "I didn't flinch. I'd faced worse threats in war." Tom put a hand on my shoulder, his grip firm, like we were back in Fallujah, covering each other's six. "You did it, Bill," he whispered. "You held the line." I nodded, my chest tight, not with victory, but with the weight of what I'd lost to get here. Sarah sat frozen, her eyes locked on the floor, no longer the defiant stranger who'd burned me with coffee. She was my daughter again, but broken, her lies exposed under the courtroom's harsh light. I stood, my boots steady on the polished floor, and walked out, the folded flag in my mind's eye still flying. This wasn't vengeance, this was justice. And for the first time in months, I felt the ground beneath me hold firm. The courtroom victory was a clean hit, like a well-placed shot in Fallujah, but the war wasn't over. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet, and the judge's gavel may have voided Sarah's fraud, but it couldn't erase the shrapnel of her betrayal lodged in my chest. 2 days after the El Paso County Courthouse ruled in my favor, Sarah Miller showed up at my doorstep, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed, no longer the defiant stranger who'd scalded me with coffee. She stood on the porch of my 1,200 square foot rancher in Colorado Springs, 3 miles from Fort Carson, the American flag in my yard snapping in the evening breeze like a reminder of the oaths I'd kept. Ryan Walker wasn't with her, his absence was a relief, but her presence felt like a live grenade, unpredictable and dangerous. My grandson Michael was inside, doing homework, unaware of the storm about to break. Sarah knocked, her fist soft but desperate, like a soldier tapping out a distress signal. I opened the door, my boots planted firm, my gaze steady as a rifle scope. "Dad," she whispered, her voice cracking, "we need to talk." Her hands twisted together, nails bitten raw, a far cry from the woman who'd sneered at me in the VFW hall. "Can I come in?" she asked, glancing past me, as if searching for the home she'd tried to steal. I stepped aside, not because I trusted her, but because I wanted to hear what lies she'd spin now. The kitchen smelled of the coffee I'd brewed black, strong, not the bitter poison she'd thrown at me weeks ago. We sat at the table, the same one where I'd found her forged signature, where Michael once built model planes with me. The silence was heavy, like the air before a desert storm. "You won," she said finally, her eyes fixed on the table's wood grain. "The house is yours. The money's gone. We're losing everything. Please, Dad, withdraw the suit. Don't let them take our home." Her voice trembled, but I heard the manipulation, the same tone she'd used to justify stealing my $3,500 VA pension. I leaned back, my hands folded, my heart a fortress. "Sarah," I said, my voice low, like I was giving orders in a firefight. "You didn't just take money. You forged my name, rerouted my mail, called me a burden in front of my brothers. You tried to erase me. Why should I save you now?" Her head snapped up, eyes wide, tears spilling. "Because I'm your daughter," she cried. "Because I made a mistake. Ryan pushed me, said it was the only way to get ahead. I didn't mean for this." Her words were a plea, but they rang hollow, like a misfired round. I thought of the nights I'd worked double shifts at the garage to pay her $30,000 college tuition, the years I'd bandaged her scraped knees, the flag I'd folded at Ellen's funeral while Sarah clung to my arm. "A mistake?" I said, my voice rising, sharp as a Ka bar. You sold my home, Sarah. You mocked my service. You stood in that VFW hall and called me a broke vet as if my scars were nothing. That's not a mistake, that's betrayal. She flinched, her hands gripping the table, her knuckles white. I was desperate, she whispered. Ryan said we'd lose everything if I didn't act. I thought I was protecting Michael. Michael's name hit me like a stray bullet. I glanced toward the living room, where he sat, headphones on, oblivious to this clash. Protecting Michael? I growled. You dragged him into your lies. He's 14, Sarah, and he's watching you choose a deadbeat over family. Her sobs broke, loud and ragged, but I didn't soften. I'd seen too many cons and war enemies waving white flags only to draw knives. Dad, please, she begged, her voice barely audible. I'll do anything. Just don't let the bank take our home. I stood, my shadow falling across her. The bank's not taking my home, I said. You did that when you signed my name. You pay that debt, Sarah, not me. She rose, her face a mask of despair, and stumbled to the door. You're heartless, she whispered, her hand on the knob. I didn't move. No, I said, my voice cold as the Colorado night outside. I'm a Marine. I don't break, and I don't forgive traitors. She left, the door clicking shut, the sound final, like a rifle bolt locking into place. I stood alone, the flag outside still waving, its stars a silent promise. Sarah thought tears could undo her lies. She was wrong. This wasn't about vengeance, it was about holding the line. For me, for Michael, for the honor I'd sworn to defend. The echo of Sarah's footsteps fading from my porch felt like the last note of a bugle call, mournful yet final. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet, and though I'd held the line against my daughter's betrayal, the victory tasted bitter, like ash after a fire. Weeks passed in my Colorado Springs rancher, 3 miles from Fort Carson, the silence in my 1,200 square foot home no longer a battlefield but a quiet I didn't know how to fill. The American flag in my yard still flew, its stars catching the dawn light, but the weight of Sarah's contempt lingered, heavier than any pack I'd carried in Iraq. I'd won back my pension, my house, my name, but not my daughter. That loss cut deeper than her scalding coffee, deeper than her venom at the VFW hall. Yet, in that stillness, a faint hope stirred, fragile as a ceasefire after a long war. It was a chilly October evening, the kind where the Colorado air bites at your knuckles, when Sarah returned. I heard her knock soft, hesitant, not the desperate pounding from before. I opened the door, my boots firm on the hardwood, my eyes meeting hers. Sarah Miller stood there, no makeup, her hair pulled back, looking smaller than the woman who tried to erase me. Her eyes, once cold as a rifle barrel, were raw, red from tears she hadn't bothered to hide. Behind her, Michael, my 4-year-old grandson, clutched his backpack, his face a mix of hope and fear, like a recruit stepping into his first drill. Dad, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can we talk? I didn't answer right away. I'd heard apologies in war, empty promises from men who'd turn on you by dawn. But her voice carried something new, something broken. I let them in, the kitchen smelling of the stew I'd made, a recipe Ellen taught me years ago. We sat at the table, the same one where I'd found Sarah's forged signature, where Michael once laughed over model planes. The air was heavy, not with rage, but with the weight of years lost. I left Ryan, Sarah said, her hands folded tight, knuckles pale. He's gone, packed his things and left town after the court ruling. I see it now, Dad. He pushed me to take your money, your house. I thought it was for Michael, for our future, but it was for him. Her voice broke, tears spilling, but I stayed silent, my Marine training holding me steady, waiting for the truth to prove itself. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she continued, glancing at Michael, who watched her with eyes too old for his age. "I hurt you. The coffee, the VFW, the lies I let Ryan twist me into someone I'm not. But I'm here, Dad, because I don't want to lose you. Not completely." Michael shifted, his voice small but clear. "Grandpa, she's been different. She cries at night. She talks about you, about fixing things." His words hit me like a quiet round, not loud but piercing. I looked at Sarah, saw the girl who once saluted me at Fort Carson parades, buried under the weight of her choices. "Sarah," I said, my voice low, steady as a compass, "you didn't just hurt me. You broke trust, the one thing a Marine never betrays. I fought for this house, for your future, for Michael. You sold that for $3,500 and a con man's promises." She nodded, tears streaming, no defense left. "I know," she whispered. "I'll spend my life making it right." I leaned forward, my hands on the table. "It's not about forgiveness yet," I said. "It's about actions. You want my trust? Earn it. For Michael's sake, I'll give you a chance, but this door doesn't open wide until you prove you're my daughter again." Sarah wiped her eyes, her shoulders sagging but not defeated. Michael reached for her hand, and for a moment I saw Ellen in his grip, steady and sure. We weren't healed, not yet. The scars of her betrayal coffee burns, forged signatures, VFW shame remained. But in that kitchen, under the soft hum of the overhead light, a fragile truce took root. I looked at the flag outside, its silhouette faint against the dusk. Semper Fi wasn't just a motto, it was a promise to hold on, even when the line was thin. For Michael, for the daughter I still loved, I'd keep that door ajar. The kitchen light hummed softly, casting a warm glow over my 1,200 square foot rancher in Colorado Springs, 3 miles from Fort Carson. I'm William Bill Carter, a 62-year-old Marine Corps vet, and as I sat at my table, the scars of Sarah's betrayal scalding coffee, forged signatures, VFW shame felt less like wounds and more like battle scars, proof I'd fought and held the line. Sarah Miller, my daughter, had returned, humbled, her eyes no longer cold but searching for redemption. Michael, my grandson, sat beside her that night, his laughter a faint echo of the family we once were. The American flag outside my window stood tall, its stars a quiet reminder of the loyalty I'd sworn to uphold, not just in war, but in life. I hadn't forgiven Sarah fully trust. Like a Marine's oath is earned, not given. But I'd opened the door, just a crack, for her to prove herself. For Michael's sake, for the hope that family could be rebuilt. As a vet, I learned one truth in Iraq. Loyalty isn't just a word, it's a code. Betrayal, like Sarah's, costs more than money. It steals your name, your honor. But you can take it back, not with anger, but with resolve. Stand firm, guard your truth, and never let anyone erase who you are. That's the lesson I carry now, and it's what I pass to Michael, to you. If this story stirred something in you, hit that like button, drop a comment about what loyalty means in your battles, and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience. Let's keep fighting the good fight, together.